live with another ISOOSI Tuesday chat, our regular weekly roundtable discussion about search, social, marketing, and all things digital. I'm Carlos Fernandez, president of ISOOSI Research Engine, and today we've got a fantastic show lined up for you. We're going to be discussing how to future-proof your business, your marketing strategies, so that you're going to be best equipped for 2014. But not just 2014, looking at 2015, 16, and many years to come. We've got a great treat for you today with a panel full of special guests. We've got our resident expert, Amon Johns. We've got Rand Fishkin, Eric Enger, Bill Slawski, and our own Eric Stafford, ISOOSI's creative director. And I think you'll all agree that none of this distinguished panel really needs an introduction, but I'm going to ask them for a small intro anyway. So if we can just go around and go from the bottom of my screen left to right. Amon?
Hello everyone, Amon Johns, resident old fart of the internet. That's pretty much it. Been around since SEO wasn't, and still here. Rand, go on.
Hi gang, Rand Fishkin. I'm the CEO of Moz, although actually tomorrow I will no longer be CEO. I'm handing that position off to Sarah Bird, and I'll just be an individual contributor here at Moz. But I'm the founder and still a frequent traveler, blogger, writer, planning on continuing doing all of that stuff and working on a lot of product this year.
Awesome. You want me to go next? This is Eric Enger, CEO of Stone Temple Consulting. I've not yet had the barbarians come in and sack me, so I'm still CEO even tomorrow. But congratulations, Rand. No, seriously, I mean it. It's a typical Rand Fishkin forward-looking move. I really admire you, the step you're taking. You're doing what you want to do, so congratulations on that. And you're doing what you feel is best for the company at the same time. That's awesome.
Thanks,
but anyway, that's me, and I'm looking forward to the show today.
Bill?
Hello, everyone. My name is Bill Slawski. I'm the Director of Search Marketing for GoFish Digital, and I'm also the editor of SEO by the Sea, where I tend to spend a lot of time writing about patents and white papers, and lately home automation.
Yeah.
Very cool. And so, Carlos, I guess I'll do a quick introduction to both of us. I'm Eric Stafford, the creative director of ISOOSI, Carlos, president and founder. You probably know us from the ISOOSI Research Engine and the ISOOSI Marketing blog, but we do also have a digital agency. We have offices in LA and in South Florida. Carlos handles all of the awesome, geeky, techie, SEO-y, link-buildy stuff, and I tend to be more on the branding and conversion side of things. But happy to have you here, happy to be here, and very happy to have our special panel here. So, guys, let's get right into it. Ammon, you want to kick us off?
Yeah, and I think where we're going to focus right at the start is some of the areas that people really don't talk about that much, particularly in how we identify a trend and how we then grasp that and decide how does this inform our strategy going forward. So there's been a lot of changes this year, and over the last couple of years we've seen developments obviously in semantic search. We've seen increasing crackdowns on links through guest posts, through asking that footers not be optimized, all kinds of things there. So I guess the first question is, what are the things over the past couple of years that you've identified as firm trends? Before we go to how you...
Oh, Ammon?
Okay. Yeah, Ammon bleeped out, it seems like.
Are you back with us, Ammon?
Yeah, sorry. Rand, do you want to sort of jump on that one first?
Sure. So there's a few big trends that I've been seeing and feeling in the industry. One very frustrating one is I think that the search engines and not just the search engines but other sorts of networks are becoming more proprietary and less open with their data in general. And that's a huge frustration for marketers. I think it's one of the it's one of the things that makes me trust, Google in particular, much less than I used to, because I think the agreement that they had historically with webmasters and with creators of the web was that, hey, we're going to get to crawl and aggregate your pages. We're going to get to make all this money off of your content, but in exchange, we will provide you at least this information about how people find you and what they're looking for in your site and those kinds of things. And having taken away that data, in my opinion, is sort of an unfair move that they only are able to make because of their virtually monopolistic, completely defensible position. And I find that just hypocritical in the most evil of ways. So, I think that's a big frustration and a big problem, but it's also a trend, right? We're seeing a lack of data, not just from them, but other folks sort of moving to HTTPS, not providing referral data. One of my big frustrations is that Hacker News, right, which is a great aggregator site for the startup industry, technology world, they don't provide referral data anymore. So you get on there, you won't know it. Seeing Facebook remove some sorts of data and making it more difficult for you to organically post on there. So I think marketers are dealing with this big trend of data going away, and I think it's up to firms, like Moz and like GNIP and DataSift and others to try and come up with unique data sources and repair or replace those.
Yeah, I think that's the point. Eric.
Yeah, so I'm going to just highlight a couple of things really quickly, and this relates to all the various Google algorithms that have been happening. They've always had this strong, and increasingly strong web spam team that focuses on, finding bad actors. But what we're seeing Google do more and more now, and I don't actually debate that it's their right to do this, is they're beginning to make changes which aren't about punishing bad actors, but things which are just purely about improving their search results. And they're entitled to do that, even though other sites that are losing ranking actually aren't losing ranking because they did something wrong. It's just Google now has algorithms like Panda, which aren't about right or wrong. They're about we've observed if we do these X things, and all these sites get demoted, that our search quality went up. So it's no longer about just finding bad actors, but it's about just tuning their search quality. I actually don't debate their right to do that, but it's an important observation for people to get their minds around, because they're not actually trying to rank your site properly. They're just trying to make their product better, and you've got to fit into that. One other real quick thing, so I don't run too long with it. Everybody's talking about content marketing. I'm very passionate about content marketing, but we're having the thing happen now, which is inevitable, which is the content glut.
Yeah.
Okay. We're getting huge masses of content coming upon us, and one of the things that businesses really need to think about is, well, okay, I've learned that I need to have trusted relationships with customers, and content marketing is maybe the way I should do that, but everybody's doing it, so how do I stand out? And I think that's a big question that people have to answer to.
Yeah. Bill.
Okay, so why do I feel like responding to everything that Rand and Eric just said?
That's the next bit I'm going to jump on, don't worry.
Okay, so Google does have a lot of algorithms that are aimed mostly at improving the experience of searchers, and I think in a lot of ways some of these algorithms are focused upon things like measuring searcher satisfaction, how satisfied people are with the search results they see, with the pages that they click on. And a lot of recent patent applications I'm seeing lately, the Hummingbird stuff on to the present, sort of focus upon things like long clicks. Do people like the results they're seeing? One patent that came out recently that I haven't written about, but I'm about 3/4 of the way through, talks about probabilities of a page and a query fitting a certain topic. And then the likelihood that people searching for that topic are going to actually enjoy the page they're delivered at, even if the keywords in the original query don't appear at all on the page. So you know, that's sort of been a long-standing tenet of SEO. Try to research keywords, include them on the pages in prominent places. Look at some of the semantics of other search results and so on, but optimize for a specific term. And it's going to be moving towards topics. And when it does stuff like that, the not provided matters a whole lot less. So I'm not sure. I mean, I remember when we would ask clients back in 2005 for their log files, because Google didn't have a free analytics program, and people said, log files, what are those? Like, yeah, we can like compress those and send them to you in a zip file. How many days back do you want us to go? So you know, just the way the web even works, and the things that webmasters maybe have to be concerned about now are very different. And I think how transparent Google had been in providing keyword data was something we should be happy about. And yeah, I sort of miss it, but I think it was maybe helpful to us then. It's going to be less helpful to us in the future.
So guys, let me ask you this, because I find this discussion very interesting, and I would have to agree with you, Eric. I think there's just a glut of content out there on the internet, and so much so that it's almost not possible to even really trust your closest inner circle of friends to just not vomit shareable stuff all over you, right? And also, Rand, in terms of what you had said about data not being shared, how do you guys think these two topics affect average small business owners who don't really know much about web marketing? Do you think that it's a good thing that they have less data to get confused by and get distracted by? And do you think social is a good thing that's going to help them? What do you guys think of this?
So for a small business owner, I think a non-sophisticated marketer, I think the keyword stuff is actually really challenging, because it was a very simple way to explain to virtually anyone, right? You could go up to a blogger who has no idea about marketing or analytics, or someone who owns an ice cream shop, and say, hey, you've got this great ice cream shop in Seattle. Did you know that last month somewhere between 10 and 15,000 people performed a search query like ice cream Seattle, and you don't show up anywhere on the first page. Your website didn't get any traffic for that term or terms around that, and we can help you with that. And then, lots of small marketing consultants and SEOs would assist those small businesses, and then they'd see that traffic directly, right? So they'd see themselves ranking, they'd see the results of that, they'd see what those visitors did once they got to their site. Now you sort of have to connect up the dots, like, well, I see that Google is sending me more search traffic, and I see that I'm ranking for these terms, but I sort of have to, make some funny signals. Those signals come together in my own mind, and it really sucks that data isn't there. So I think it hurts small marketers the most. Big advertisers, big companies, no problem, right? They can go and get really sophisticated. They can build modeling out. They can use tools to go and get this data. So it's very unfair to the little guy, and very I don't care to the sophisticated, advanced SEOs who have budget, who have tools, who have access to large amounts of data, who are spending large amounts of money on AdWords. It's just, I hate that. I hate the whole let's bias to the big guys. That gets in my craw.
No, I agree that it does make it harder for the small guy to figure out what's going on, and keyword data was an easy way to get them engaged and moving forward, especially since their time is so limited, and you're really trying to help them just understand what's going on. And they don't actually understand what's going on, and this actually was a way of helping them move forward. But on the content side of things, I think the big thing I want to get to with this is, especially if you're a small business, get narrowly focused around what you're about in your region. Don't start writing articles about all kinds of different topics and think you have to publish something every day.
Yeah.
You know, the algorithms are going to more and more reward people that stay true to their niche, right, and stay focused, in my opinion, both in terms of, if you're a local business, your locality, right, as well as your topic area. So, and the related thing, and I actually think this works to the advantage of small businesses, and I know many people will disagree with me, which is small businesses are able to be laser focused, and they should leverage that, because the larger companies have a great deal of trouble with that. And I actually think that's a weapon in the small businesses' quiver, an arrow in their quiver. It's the fact that they can be laser focused. Lasers, arrows, well, whatever. You know, they can be really focused on their one thing and really do that well and hammer that home. Not worried so much about the volume, but the quality of it all.
Hey, Eric, can I ask you a quick question about one of the things that you mentioned? And Bill, I know you touched on this a little bit too, which is around the web spam stuff, right? And all the algorithms that have been coming out to sort of punish bad results. So, personally, I found the Rap Genius, right, example that happened over in December, right? So Rap Genius was sort of caught spamming, right? They were sending emails to all sorts of folks saying, hey, we'll tweet a link to our 500,000 followers to your site if you link to us, kind of doing that exchange model. Right. Google's web spam team slapped them on the wrist, took them out of the index for 10 days, now they're back in. That's one of those things where clearly Rap Genius and a lot of other lyric sites have been abusing Google's algorithm and their terms of service significantly, and yet I did think it was fascinating because, Eric, you mentioned Google really cares about the quality of their search results more than anything else, and that really reminded me of the Rap Genius thing, because I feel like Rap Genius was adding to the value of Google's search results. And so I'm curious what you guys think about that example of spam, and whether there's some difference between how certain kinds of spam is treated.
No, there's no question, Brian. This is a fantastic example of Google looking after the quality of their search results, right? Taking Rap Genius out of the search results, even though they violated the rules, lowered their search quality results because people were looking for that, right? So no wonder they got fast-tracked in, and as I understand it, and I didn't validate this myself, they even got help from Google with the cleanup. And so it was bad for Google's product to not have them in. And this is another case where the big brand has a fundamental advantage over a small business. Small business isn't going to get that help. If you're a small business, you get booted out, it doesn't actually hurt Google's search results in any material way. Rap Genius being taken out certainly did, and that's why they get fast-tracked back in, no doubt about it. And again, I don't know that I totally fault Google for that, even though it makes a crappy non-level playing field.
Yeah, it's one of the things that I always say about brand. The ultimate way to be safe in Google, to an extent, is to be one of the sites that makes Google look bad if it doesn't have you in there. If you do a search for car manufacturers and BMW isn't there anywhere,
like you do it in Germany, you search for BMW, car manufacturers in Germany, and which happened, they got banned at one point, again for a very short period of time.
Yeah, that's going to send you right over to Bing. So can I ask maybe a pointed question that the panel might not even want to address, which is, how do you guys feel about the fairness or unfairness of this, of this type of treatment? And do you think there's anything, right? I know, obviously there was a number of comments in some threads about Rap Genius. The head of Google's web spam team, of course, is a large investor in the fund that put money into Rap Genius, right? And so lots of people kind of going, what the hell, right? I mean...
oh, me. Yeah. This comes right back to our opening statements. One of the big trends we've all noticed is that Google is becoming a player in its own right. It's not a utility for the rest of us to use. This year and last year, we've seen a lot more of Google putting Google's business first. And I think that we all know is a trend that's going forwards. And it means we've got to stop trying to think utility, and we've always kind of had this image of Google as this helpful little fairy that sits in the background and helps our business with nothing in its own little agenda. Right. And yeah, wake up, that's over. You know, Google has its own business, and for more and more webmasters, Google is becoming a competitor. If you do TV listings, if you do sports statistics, Google is already hitting you very hard. If you were doing wallpaper and images a couple of years ago, Google hit you hard when, you know, image search changed. So you've got to understand that Google is a player in its own right. When you look at it that way, is it using fair competitive strategies? Yeah, only we'd had the foresight to build a Google search engine and own the platform. Will it have to be a little bit more careful? Are they running the risk of being investigated as a monopoly? Yeah, you know they are. They're being investigated all over the world almost constantly as a monopoly. So I think it's fair, but it's going to be a long process before we decide exactly where the lines are, and that's going to take a lot of politicians and an awful lot of greasing of the pockets of politicians.
Are you doing the greasing, Emma? Are you taking care of this for us?
No, I don't like greasy politicians.
You know what, guys? I think it's a really good point that you bring up, Rand, and I think it's just a function of branding, and I think that's why social media is so important, is because it allows other people to own the brand. And if I find, you know, a Beetle in a Pepsi that I'm drinking, Pepsi, you know, how would they ever listen to me in the past? I would have to write them a letter. Now they can listen on social media. So I guess the bigger question is, you know, they're not going to listen to me as well as they would listen to a political action committee or some sort of bigger group. If I've got a following that matters, and I think this is some of where Google Plus comes in, right? So I'd love to hear you guys' thoughts on Google Plus moving forward and how all of this integrates, because I think that's what people are really interested in. Is the social combination, right?
Yeah, I see this great question from Cameron Brown asking, you know, can the panel address the trend of author rank and authorship and the increased correlation of social signals with rankings? And I think this actually speaks to what Bill Slosky was talking about, right? With Google saying essentially we're looking for things that provide value to our searchers, and so things that come from trusted sources, things that have high quality that people are likely to want to share, are things that we want to rank in our search engine. And so I would guess that, yes, there may be things about the social web that are directly influencing Google's algorithm, but it's probably also going a lot in the other direction too, right? That things that people want to socially share are things that Google has found ways to rank highly. And so as you're developing content as a marketer today, I think optimization has gone from this keyword-driven sort of, you know, do I have my keywords in the right places? Am I on the right topic? To, am I providing great value to searchers? And am I creating something so unique and useful that lots of people will want to share that on social media? And both of those two things are things that Google will interpret directly and or indirectly to rank you higher.
I wrote my first blog post on agent rank back in 2007, and I've been future-proofing my marketing based on reputation ever since. So Google needs to get moving and start using this author rank.
You heard it here first. Google is way behind Bill. If they would just hire him and put him in charge of their search engine, they'd be way ahead.
Yeah, so it's really interesting, though. I mean, people have been talking about author rank for a long time, and from my perspective, well, few as long as Bill, but ever since Rel Author came out, people have been talking about author rank, and you know, author rank. Lots of people claim it's here and all that. There's actually no evidence of that, but we also need to remember that implementing algorithms, if Google implementing a new ranking algorithm, it's actually really hard.
Yeah.
It isn't just, hey, I got this one signal. I recognize that Bill Slosky has been working on his agent rank. His main problem is he mislabeled. If he called it author rank, then he'd be all set. But since 2006,
Danny Sullivan went and changed the name of that blog post to the agent rank / author rank. Then
you'd be all set. Yes, exactly.
So we're
bunch of
set
SEOs out there, changing their keywords.
But the problem is that Google tinkers with one thing in the system, and then they have to measure the unintended consequences elsewhere in the algorithm, and things happen. It's actually very, very difficult for Google to make changes, and that's why these things, we conceive of them, we understand the logic of them, and then we assume that they're here, and it never happens that way. It takes many, many years. I can't tell you how many years I was sitting around saying, why don't they just punish article directories?
Yeah.
And it didn't happen until April 24th, 2012, and it's like, I knew this was a problem 8 years ago. Why couldn't they have done this so much sooner? And we need to realize that. And there's a very revealing thing that happened with the Hummingbird release, which was actually covered in a Hangout I did with Danny Sullivan on my show. And that was where Danny talked about one of the things that happened with the Hummingbird platform update, which was an update of the overall search platform. Is that they enabled themselves to start processing new types of signals in a way that they couldn't have done before. Bill, you wrote about this later, about whether or not Hummingbird would enable author rank, and I certainly wrote about and did some stuff on whether Hummingbird would start enabling real use of social signals. They had to rewrite the whole platform to even begin contemplating some of these things. I think that's an important thing for people to realize.
Yeah.
So one of the things that you have to think about seriously when you're writing algorithms for ranking for search isn't just how effective a signal might be, but how easy it might be to attack it, to manipulate it, to take advantage of it. So I've seen that sometimes referred to as the cost to attack, and it is something. Somebody goes out and starts pointing rel author links to somebody else's page and copies their information. They don't have the corresponding link back from the profile of the original author, but it's looking like Google's assuming authorship in a lot of places now to maybe try to get coverage in instances where people aren't adopting authorship badges and so on. So how do you account for the potential ways somebody might abuse a reputation score? There are a lot of ways, and it's hard to tell what Google has explored and hasn't explored yet at this point. But those are things that are very real considerations they need to take into account.
No, that's a great point, Bill. I mean, we've had Google learning to fight spam since 1998, and when the link spammers arrived, they were ill prepared for what happened to them. And as they implement these new systems, you can bet your whatever four-letter explanation you want to put in there that they're going to design those things to have a fundamentally higher level of robustness against spam attack. Because remember, Google is pretty close to being a monopoly. Their business isn't broken. We might find things we don't like about their algorithm, but they don't have to fix it with all these new signals in any hurry. As they introduce these new signals, they're going to make sure they're really solid and resistant to spam.
Yeah, I think someone's asking in the comments, and I find it extremely pertinent in the Q&A. There's a lot of talk about this author rank, agent rank, personal rank. How can a small business actually take advantage of this? And for me, that's about extending a model that's long existed in small business marketing, which is thought leadership. Thought leadership is something that's happened since the age of, newspapers and radio, right? You get on your local national public radio station and, get interviewed on a topic, and, you're the fishing expert in Portland, Oregon, and so you know the most about, what kind of lines and lures and where to catch fish and that kind of thing, and they interview you. You can extend that same thought leadership model in small business to the web. and Google Plus and author rank whenever it does come into play, or if it's already in play, essentially benefits that. And I think one of the wonderful things is for folks who say, well, how does all this social stuff help my SEO? I can't see it directly, therefore I'm not going to do it. I think that's crazy. Absolutely crazy, because social drives so much traffic, especially traffic from influencers, right? And traffic from influencers is what leads to links, it's what leads to branding, it leads to press mentions, it leads to coverage, and that leads to rankings. It takes a while, and it's indirect, but I would urge folks to say, even if you are, the fly fishing expert in Portland, Oregon, great. I don't need you to blog every day. Can you do something once a month, 4 times a year even, that is really, truly remarkable? You're providing absolutely essential information, and you're leveraging that unique value that you can provide. That's how I do it.
Yeah, I agree. The whole thing is that the really strong social channel is like your own built-in PR channel.
Yeah.
Under your control, you share stuff, and links result. And so you don't have to argue whether the plus ones or the shares are driving SEO value.
Yes,
you're getting links, and nobody argues about that.
Right. Find the things that you like to talk about that you're truly interested in, and find people to talk about them on Twitter, on Facebook, on Google+, and go at it. So if it's fly fishing in Seattle, and you've got tips on different lures to use, when to go fishing, whether or not the tide makes a difference, and so on, those interactions with other people are the types of signals that Google will use to build a reputation score. So it's not so much work, it's talking about the things you love to talk about and the things you love to do with other people who have just as strong an interest. Hopefully the job you do on a daily basis goes along with those interests you hold. If not, maybe think about getting another job.
Yeah, we all work with clients or come from a client or agency background, and Carlos and I find this all the time. And Rand, clients have a tough time doing what you're suggesting because they don't see the immediate ROI in it. They don't get the expert positioning or the branding elements of it, or even SEO. They're like, why would we invest in SEO? Where's the ROI? And it's very difficult to show ROI in that stuff. So.
Yeah, well, this is one of those things where I like applying just sort of the basic nature of human existence, right? So my experience on this planet, and I think virtually everyone's that I've ever read about, is when you invest in things that only are provable as providing very short-term value and return, you never have truly great success. And when you instead bias to invest in things that don't seem to have much return up front, but are building something wonderful for the long term, right? Those are education and forms of self-discovery and bettering yourself and building your own business, which most small business owners have done, right? And that's a long-term investment. It doesn't pay off in year 1, never in month 1, right? Or even in year 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And so marketing just happens to work the same way. And I think, sadly, the historically transactional nature of internet marketing has made people have this false belief about how the web should work to drive business. They think visitor comes to site, performs transaction, where did they come from? Let me go get more of those. Rather than, how do I build up a content presence? How do I build up a marketing presence? And it's funny that we're on this call together, that Ammon Johns is on this call, because I think, Ammon, you were the very first person that I ever talked to online. It was back at Create a Site forums, who gave me this bigger, broader perspective on what marketing really is, that it's bigger than transactional, that it's bigger than SEO, that you're building a brand and building a personal reputation through the web, and that over time that would have far greater returns than, hey, I rank #1 for SEO tools, come buy my software.
I actually want to call out you had a great power tip that was not digital marketing specific, but entrepreneur specific, and it's worth highlighting, which is, if you're going to be successful as an entrepreneur, you have to be able to know when you believe something enough in your heart and stomach, or however you measure it, and just treat it as 100% fact and go. you are going to be able to need to be able to make decisions that way, because you can't be wandering around with all the self-doubt killing you all the time. Now, how successful you are will depend on how often that gut feeling is correct, right? Yeah. But you have to have that if you're going to succeed as an entrepreneur.
Well, this is what strategy is fundamentally, right? Business strategy is about saying, here's this very long-term goal. We're going to continually work towards that. And yes, we'll learn along the way, but we're not going to change the top-level strategy, right? The thing that we're chasing after for years and years. We're not going to change that every month or every week. That's insanity. But it's hard to do. And Eric, it's funny you mentioned self-doubt, because I've written about this recently with my CEO transition. I have a tremendous amount of self-doubt. I am almost a full-time pessimist when it comes to the short term, and my optimism rests only in the long term.
Yeah, and in your mustache.
Because, yeah, I'm working on that guy.
No, it's interesting because I think successful entrepreneurs also run with a lot of self-doubt, but they know how to make something a decision, and they push through the self-doubt, and they just go for it like it's a proven fact that it's going to work. They do
Absolutely. The people who change the world always have that belief that no matter, even if the rest of the world thinks they're crazy, they just know they're right.
And it's
the
okay
ones who aren't get locked up, and the ones who are become the Henry Fords, who believed in the production line when nobody else did. He went bust 6 times trying to get this thing to work, but he knew absolutely that he could do it given enough time. He kept getting back up. That's Henry Ford for you, and I've always admired his marketing. There's a lot of other things you might not like about him, but that guy was a marketer. The Henry Ford.
Right, and it's okay to fail, though.
How many times did Edison fail at the light bulb?
Oh yeah.
And there's a light on top of a pole at Menlo Park in New Jersey that's been burning for almost a century.
Really?
True.
Huh.
True story.
I got to see that.
Yeah.
So
now you've mentioned it, there'll be green campaigners out there going, "Stop wasting electricity."
So someone asked about Google launching its own travel comparison site, right? There was I think it was the CEO of Ryanair accidentally leaked that Google's going to be launching a site to compete with Kayak and Expedia and all those guys. And I think this person asked a great question, Mike Gracia, which is, do you think we'll see Google services competing with other businesses, and what are those? And I've been sort of kind of noodling in my head since I saw this question, like, what is the next thing Google's going to be competing with on their own?
I think any major affiliate market is in danger, because, and the reason why I say that is they've already done this with credit cards, for example. Travel is a big affiliate market. And the reason why those are big affiliate markets is because there's a lot of money in them. A lot of people are willing to spend money. And Google is not a big fan of intermediary websites, right? Yeah. Especially intermediary websites that don't bring a lot of true additional incremental value. And because to them, they think they can do that better themselves. And to me, those are all areas that are under some level of threat. Insurance, education.
Education would be a really interesting one. I mean, there's all those online colleges and online courses and programs, and just a massive affiliate market. I would personally love, in some ways, to see Google remove some of the ugliness in that field, because it is really nasty. But at the same time, I don't want to see them become the arbiter. Google controls so much of the world and the web's information already.
No, I'm laughing at you, Rand, because you might remember, or you'll remember it when I tell you that I've built and sold 3 different education affiliate companies.
And sold wisely sold.
Well, I have another one now. But we have always focused on a very high level of actual value in the content. So it's not like the spammy type experiences, and we've been very focused on that. So I think there's going to be a tremendous amount of pressure, not just in affiliate space, in any space, to show Google justification as to why, to this discussion thread we had earlier, why it will be bad for their search results if you're not in them, right? And as an affiliate marketer, that's a high bar to reach.
Yeah.
Yeah, but outside of affiliate, the market I think is absolutely ripe for Google at the moment is real estate, property sales, because they've got Google Maps, they've got Google Local, people try to provide all kinds of information, and of course the markups are humongous. They can take out most real estate companies completely, wipe them out of the equation, and just be the direct buffer between the buyer and the seller.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, there's a number of real estate startups here in the Seattle region, Redfin, obviously, and Zillow, of course, and Trulia, which isn't in Seattle, is another big one in the U.S. But I think those folks have tried to do a little of what you're talking about. It'd be fascinating to see Google try and compete with that. And that reminds me, the other one, that I've seen them try to get into with their purchase of Zagat and what they've done with Google Local is try to take over the restaurants vertical. And I've actually found it fascinating to see that, we saw this dip from Yelp for a while, right? A significant dip. Like in the rankings, they were almost always below the local results. And now they started to trend in a lot of cities, I think in most cities, back up. And we've seen them re-enter the top 10, most frequently on the homepage, or most frequently in the top 10 results sites on the web for Google. And so I think it's interesting. It almost suggests to me that maybe Google found that searchers didn't have as positive an experience with what they were doing as what Yelp is doing.
Google search quality went down when Yelp was pushed down.
Yeah. Well, and people were just happier with it, right? So you see the Yelp results fall below the local one box and then rise back up above them over time. I think that's exactly the kinds of analysis algorithms that you guys are talking about.
I think in some instances that happened because Google was backed off their approach to named entities. So it used to be when you search for something like Space Needle hours, Google would say, okay, you want the spaceneedle.com website, and they would show you 8 of the first 10 pages in the top 10 would be from spaceneedle.com. And people were complaining about the lack of diversity in search results. So Google stopped assuming that every time a query that invoked a named entity would appear, that people were trying to do a site search. You see a lot less of search results predominantly come from one domain anymore. They've backed off of that, which gives room for sites like Yelp to move back up onto that first page.
Yeah, I think that's actually a really smart move on Google's part, because I think and this could well be, but I think the diversity of the kinds of results are one of the reasons that people use Google as opposed to just going directly to the site itself.
Yeah.
Right, especially with how auto suggest works in for example, the Chrome toolbar or the Chrome browser bar or the Firefox browser bar. If I start typing in Space Needle, the website domain comes right up. Why don't I just go there? The reason I'm searching for Space Needle is because I want more information from Google. Right, I want to see that diversity.
You want to
see what third parties are saying.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
So Cameron Brown asked about. This is an interesting one since we were talking about the Google crackdown on guest blogging. The resources where content marketers can find opportunities for guest blogging.
Fiverr.
There's some misunderstandings here. Guest blogging itself is still good. Guest blogging is still good. However, if you are guest blogging predominantly because you want to build links, guess what? Google's not that dumb. They can see that. And there were a lot of really bad guest posts where people were essentially just doing article submission again, but they were calling it guest blogging. And they were rehashing the same article, published to 3 or 4 different places, and it just was. It was another article syndication, and we know how they feel about that.
And the same bio with the same links on every one of them.
Hey, Carlos, let me ask you about this, because I know that on the ISOOSI marketing blog we have a lot of posts from a lot of different people now, and I know you spend an enormous amount of time making sure that the content is really good. Have you seen any negative impacts on that?
No, I mean, it's like what all the panelists said. If you're just putting content out there just to attract, links, you're not doing it for the right reasons. You need to be putting it out there to speak to the audience, to give. I think it was in Eric Enger's Hangout last week with Stephen Spencer. It's about creating remarkable content, content that's people can remark on, that is actually stands out and can be differentiated from some other content. So we do spend a long time trying to make sure that the articles not haven't obviously been written about before, but that they actually do stand out. But again, that's why one of the reasons that we wanted this panel together is you guys have all stood the test of time. Instead of kind of riding short-term waves and fads and things like that, we wanted to get this hangout together to look at identifying trends, because you talk about Hummingbird. Hummingbird was a big change to the system, and even though a lot of the changes were not seen, 90% of queries were not changed. It's like the whole engine was replaced, and that's going to give them the capability, Google the capability to add new filters in the future, look for new signals, and basically we don't really know some of the things that they're going to be analyzing for. So throwing that back out to you, Amon, it's how do small businesses today, in my opinion, people shouldn't just be looking at Google and say that they've got a right to that to the traffic, and it's kind of like instead of looking at social and saying, all right, how is this going to improve my SEO? How is it going to improve my rankings? It's look at social as its own channel and start speaking to to that audience.
Yeah.
But I really feel we deal with a lot of small businesses. Obviously, we've got some larger clients, but the small businesses really have a difficult time grasping these big changes that are coming. I mean, I know we've talked about that in our chats together.
Well, the biggest trend, coming right back to the first post and everything we've kind of said since, is that these guys on this panel today are people who understood years ago when I was saying the most important thing you've always got to remember is that Google is a business. It's a business of its own. And a lot of our ability to spot trends is in understanding that Google itself has a business model. Google itself has a marketing plan. And when you start to think in those terms and stop thinking of Google as a free utility, a free-for-all, or a road, and instead that this is a company and it builds toll roads, and it builds toll roads where it can make money. When you understand that, it's going to put a lot more in context. One of the reasons we say focus on the audience is because Google has those same people as its customers. If Google's audience tomorrow, it loses its entire business. So Jake said in the chat that a lot of people think that the customers of Google aren't the customers, they're actually the product. That's thinking that us SEOs are the customers. We're not. It's the other way around.
Right.
We are just part of the supply chain. We are supplying somewhere interesting for people to pay the taxi to go, but Google is the taxi.
And how much is Google paying us? Because it feels like they have pretty good margins on that product supply.
Well, this comes back to your thing about keeping that data private, Yeah,
geez.
I really am starting to say to my clients, look, shut down Google Analytics. They are showing you the way forwards. The way forwards is to say, not provided to Google.
Right. Yeah. Interesting.
Play the same game back and start owning your data. So that, okay, Google's always going to have data you can't, but at least Google hasn't got all of it, and you're not freely giving it yours as well. really do start bringing some of that analytics in, owning that. Don't give Google the whole picture, just as a long-term strategy.
We have seen, an increase in usage of things like Mixpanel, Kissmetrics, what's the other one? Piwik, right? Those are getting some greater adoption. You can see that in the built with trends. So that's an interesting one. In terms of going back to this question about places to find guest blogging opportunities, I have to say that one of my favorite tactics is actually to reverse the social sphere, right? To basically say, here are influential people who already follow me, who already like what sort of content that I'm sharing, who I have some form of relationship with, even if it's just a social media one, and going and finding their sites and blogs, contacting them. I really like that, and that requires you to build an audience and relationships over social first, but I think that's a really healthy way to go. I think if you can't prove your value over social media, you have no business going out and trying to do the guest blogging thing either.
Yeah, really a couple of things to say about this, which is when you're thinking about guest blogging, the first I can capture in 2 words: aim high. Okay, highest quality possible, and start by understanding the highest possible target you could potentially ever get on. And if you don't have enough authority to get there, everything you're doing starting from today on forward is a roadmap on how you're going to get to that highest.
Boom. I love that. Yes.
Right. You have to have that vision. And the other thing is think about columns, not maximum number of domains.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
You want to get a few authoritative columns, and maybe occasionally you do guest things on sites, but again, focusing high on authority. It's no longer about getting thrown across the maximum number of domains. That logic went out years ago, and you're far better off getting a few very authoritative columns and maybe doing occasional guest posts on high authority sites elsewhere.
Eric, can I just challenge you on one thing? Because people challenge me on this all the time, right? So I go speak at a conference, I put out a Whiteboard Friday, blog post about this kind of stuff, and someone will inevitably, right? Oftentimes someone who's doing some gray or black hat SEO, they'll say, but this works. Here's a bunch of super low quality sites. I've never gotten an authoritative link in my site. I don't even do social, but I've gotten a bunch of crappy guest blogs, and I've pointed them with anchor text matching to this page, and look at it ranking in Google. And sure, it'll only last 6 months or a year, but that's all I need to make my money. Like, what do you say to challenge those folks? What do all of you say? Because I'm constantly looking for something new to say to those folks.
Well, they're not looking at a long-term business strategy then, or a business that is going to stand the test of time. If they're looking just at a 6-month, time frame, it's not really a business.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of those folks do the cycling thing, right? They sort of churn and burn through sites, so they have whatever their business or their affiliate relationship, and they're happy to move on.
As long as they understand that they're going to get penalized, it's like Ammon and I have discussed this at length last week. It's the days of building pages just optimized around particular cities and thin content trying to rank like that are gone. Building content that is valuable on the web has always been something that Google and folks have harped on about. But it's just for businesses that want to build 6-month kind of churn and burn websites, that may be part of their strategy, but I wouldn't really call that out. It's like Ammon just posted in the content that it's an income, not a business.
Well, yeah. Right. The other thing to realize is that what you're talking about doing there, and what those people are talking about, is actually hard.
Yeah.
It's actually very hard to do. So if you as an individual want to develop your skill in being able to launch, churn, and operate churn and burn websites, and you want to maintain a pipeline of websites, and that's how you want to make a living, you can make that choice if you want to. Who the hell wants to do that for a living?
Exactly.
I mean, it's not any harder to do it the right way. And if you do it the right way, you're building something that has some enduring value. And by the way, you can be proud about showing it to your kids.
That's right.
You can be proud about explaining it at the neighborhood party. You can, feel like you have an opportunity to give back and give value to people. or you can do this churn and burn BS, and I don't know. That's just me.
You know,
by the way, if they don't buy that argument, Rand, you aren't going to convert them anyway.
I know. Yep.
Yeah, that's
Exactly.
right.
What they're doing, that's what they want to do. What they're doing is, hey, look, I'm a really skilled builder. I can go around building these houses all over the place, and I won't do any maintenance, and they'll fall down. And that's fine. I'm just selling these cheap houses very, very quickly. Well,
Right.
some of us know that what you do is you start to build up a property portfolio. You say, right, I'm building this house today, and then I'm going to make sure it's properly maintained and properly managed, and I'm going to rent it out for the rest of my life. So that's got money coming in every week, every month for the rest of my life. And then I'm going to build the next house and make sure that's properly maintained. And over time, I'm building and building and building. And eventually, I stop working, and I've still got more money coming in each month than if I was flat out breaking my neck at the start of my career. Now will want to be still breaking their necks flat out in 2 years' time. Great, keep with the churn and burn. It's fun. If that's what you're doing it for, great. Have fun. But if you want to build a business that's going to look after you later, that is going to still keep running if you should have a serious accident and be laid off for 3 months, 6 months. If you need to take some time to sort any kind of personal issues out, a business that's still there, that still runs.
I don't have time to sort my personal issues out, actually.
Yeah, I'm not.
I was just gonna.
Not sure we got that long.
Sorry, Emin. I was just gonna say. I mean, everyone that I know has got some sort of business mentor that they look up to, and in many cases, several. I know that there's a lot of people in business that I look up to, and I don't think it's any accident that all of them say the same thing. The same things in terms of being focused and doing things the right way, even if you have to put in super long hours, and being remarkable, like Eric had said, putting out remarkable content, not trying to game the system, building in an intelligent way. It's no accident that all of the people on this panel who are very well respected in this community are all telling you the same things, and they're all successful. And so, I mean, mimic what works. That's always worked for really smart entrepreneurs, right?
There's always quick fixes. There's always things that work right now. And do you know what? There is always a pressure from certain people. Look, I want results right now. Take the shortcut. I need the money now. I can understand that. This is the real world. But what I say is don't put all of your strategies into that. Understand that those are part-time strategies. Those are not going to last. You are always going to be working. If you're devoting all your time to that, you're going to be firefighting for the rest of your life. Put a little bit of time into what's going to work quickly as a proof of concept, and use the proof of concept to invest in the stuff that's going to last. And for goodness sake, if it is something that's going to burn, make sure it's not going to take the rest of your building down with it that's built right.
Yeah. This is a fascinating one. Evan Price had asked, I know we have to wrap up soon, but he said, do you ever see Google going the way of Yandex and trying to factor out links from the algo? And it's sort of interesting because it speaks to the churn and burn strategies, which are almost always nearly dependent exclusively on sort of anchor text links. And I don't know what I believe about that. I guess I could imagine it in a very long term, but it feels.
Bill, is there a patent on that?
It's like ask me if there's a patent on relevancy.
I think the simplest thing that I'd say to a lot of people when they're looking at links is stop thinking that Google or Boolean, that they have to either count all links or no links. That's not been the way it is for about 12 years now. Google looks at some links, and Google have so many links to work with that if they just cut out every single link they've got any question mark about, they've still got more than enough links to make PageRank work. So they don't have to worry about detecting spam. They just have to say, right, are we 80% certain that this one is 100% legit? Because if we're not, we just discount it. We've still got 10 million other links to work with.
Yeah, I heard Dwayne Forrester say something really interesting at a recent show. I don't remember which one it was, and it was actually in a side conversation. But basically what he said is people, they look at these huge link graphs and they think all these things are important. We're only really looking at a few of them.
Yeah.
That's what he said.
Yeah, I think this is one of the interesting things when folks do analysis of various link graphs, right? And I think I I've been very frustrated by the fact that at Moz we haven't been able to grow our web index as massively as some of the others out there, Majestic and Ahrefs in particular, and we have engineers working on it. But when they do correlation analyses or look at the propensity for links to be indexed and seeming to count, we often score very well, even though we have a smaller index. And to me, that always sort of triggers that idea that, Ammon, you might be right, that Google is counting some links and not others. The other one I saw that was really interesting is someone had been emailing me, and there was a private conversation, but basically the gist of it was this person had some reasonably good evidence that the Wikipedia links, even though they're no followed, seem to pass some form of ranking value. And I thought that was pretty interesting, because once Wikipedia took away the no-follow, or put on the no-follow, their links sort of actually became more useful to Google because they were less gamed. And so it's almost like, oh yeah, I would want to count those links if I were them.
Sure.
So those links,
reason why they can't count them anyway.
Sorry?
Those links may not pass along PageRank. They may not pass along hypertext relevance, but Google may be looking at signals such as authority, and maybe calculating some type of authority rank for pages, and that may be a signal based upon links from fairly well-trusted sources like Wikipedia.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Well, PageRank isn't a direct driver of ranking anyway, so I can't imagine that Wikipedia links don't count for something, especially on highly maintained and pages.
Yep. And of course, they've always got click-through data as well to use.
Sure.
So even if the link wasn't counting, the fact that people could be going through the link would be counting.
Right.
There's lots of different of looking at these things. Personally, do you know what? I don't think the field of SEO would be one bit worse off if nobody ever mentioned PageRank again. Honestly. I don't think it has enough importance these days to actually make a difference.
It's a good thing to learn in theory, but
yes,
I think it's funny that they tried to deprecate it and they failed.
That was odd.
I just wanted to see Matt's face the day that the PageRank toolbar came back after he said it wasn't really going to and it wasn't important. I reckon he was just.
Very possible.
Oh, Matt, that PageRank thing that we said we were going to fix.
Oh, brother.
When we got to it, well, we fixed it.
Hey, you guys, I apologize. Unfortunately, I have to run. But this has been a totally awesome panel, and it's so much fun hanging out with you.
You know what? We've gone an hour. Do you just have a last final thought you want to share, Rand, before you boogie, and then we'll all do the same?
Sure. So I think one of the big things for me, just in the big picture view of entrepreneurship and marketing, is being able to focus and do the things that I love to do, have passion about and interest about, and the intersection of that passion and interest with what I know the audience that I'm trying to reach is interested in. So, Eric, you had talked about, finding a great passion or maybe finding a new job, and I think that intersection of those two is really powerful and important. And that's kind of what I'm hoping to do starting tomorrow after I resign from this CEO role and get to do more of my product and marketing stuff.
Become an individual contributor.
Individual contributor. You don't need to manage people to have influence. That's
right.
It's going to be my mantra.
Mm-hmm.
Eric, final thought from you?
Thanks so much, you guys.
So, Byron. So, I think we had a really good discussion in this panel about how important it is to make the commitment and the investment to establish your own authority, your own place, your own voice. To not do the tricks, and we kind of went into that in great depth. And people will say that it's easy for you guys to say because look, you've accomplished some things. But I can tell you that Stone Temple Consulting was built from the ground up that way. It was just me, and no one knew who the hell I was. I just started, trying to do stuff, made tons of mistakes. It was a long journey. Along the way, I ended up meeting a lot of people, had a tremendous amount of fun. It works. You have to be patient. You have to commit to it, but it's far better long-term way to go than anything else.
Yeah. Yeah. Bill?
Okay. When I joined GoFish Digital last year, September, they were fairly well known for their reputation management abilities, which is interesting because I've sort of always believed that being proactive, building a positive reputation, building some level of authority is beneficial regardless of what you do and can help you when you need some type of Actually, you don't need as much help in planning for emergencies and problems because they tend to happen less to you. You've already planned for them. You've anticipated them. You've understood the problems that products you have may have or services, and you've worked out how not to let those happen. So I think a lot of future proofing in SEO as we move forward is in building positive reputation, in building authority, in making problems less likely to happen.
Yeah,
I totally agree. Building a company is so much more than just, farming, getting content out there, and like you got to, brand mentions is going to become significantly more important. But as business owners, I think a lot of people should stop thinking, again, like I said before, that the search engine is that Google is their only source of traffic, their only source of potential customers. Get offline and go network. Chamber of Commerce events, local networking events, and then take those relationships onto social, and then you start to build influence and authority in your own sphere. And if you go back to what Eric Enger said earlier, become more focused in a particular area of expertise, but then don't be scared of collaborating. So it's like tradesmen used to be. If you were an electrician, back in the day before the internet, the biggest source of jobs, if you were a sparky, as we used to say in England, if you're an electrician, one of the biggest sources of work was probably from your plumber friends or your carpenter friends. And it's the same in today's environment. If you're a pay-per-click specialist or a content writer, form relationships, stronger, strategic relationships, maybe with SEO companies. That is going to stand the test of time, and stand in, whether the algorithms change next week or in a year. Build relationships on social, offline, and really that's my kind of final takeaway from how to future-proof your business. Eric?
Cool. Yeah. I am as far from an SEO as you could probably get. I am a right-brain creative, very into pushing pixels and branding, and I'm on calls like this because, guys, this is the future. If you're marketing on the web, you have to know this stuff, and I don't think it's any accident that when we get really distinguished guests like Eric and like Rand and like Bill, they all talk about long-term strategies for providing remarkable, memorable content that all falls into the branding side of it. So whether you're an SEO or not, you have to pay attention to this sort of stuff, creating really, really memorable content and then distributing it in really smart ways. It comes down to a marriage of the two. And so I'm here, and I would encourage all of you that don't think you're into this stuff to start to pay attention to it in a big way.
Yeah, absolutely. And the funny thing is, it all comes back, it's the same conversation. It's marketing, however you look at it. Eric, when you're talking about branding, you're talking often about the visual side of branding, about how the presentation is made, what colours and logos are associated with it, and what meaning comes with those colours and associations, what kind of message you're sending across. What we're saying is that ability to build an identity and to have an identity that people can feel a relationship with, that goes right across all fields of marketing.
Yep.
Everything we're doing is about kind of being a living icon, a living logo for your business, for what your area of expertise is. Become an icon, become your own logo. That's really the message, because the biggest trend over this next year is going to be about taking all of your different marketing ideas, all of your different marketing channels, and applying them together, so that you're doing integrated marketing, everything into everything else, and you're understanding that a customer is often across all of these different channels, so you need to be consistent across them as well. And I would say that the other thing that brings it all back to what we've just been saying and what we've been saying all along, relationships is where it's at. It's about the relationship you build between yourself and each customer out there. And the way to do that is be yourself, be genuine, be unique, be interesting. And that's it. Let the customer decide who's right for you. Well, I think we've had a great show today. I'd like to thank all of you so much for being a part of this. I know Carlos and Eric are really stoked about this as well. So thank you very much, gentlemen. And I think we can call it there. And hopefully we'll see everyone next week for the same topic with some different guests. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, thanks.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you all. Appreciate
Thank you,
it.
Eric. Thanks, Rand. And yeah, tune in next week. We have some great guests coming, 3 o'clock next Tuesday. Thank you.